The first weekend in November, and it's king tide, the first one of the fall season. And I am down in Oregon, in southern Oregon on the coast. This is Shore Acres State Park, and these rock formations off the coast are just amazing. And the way that they're located and the way they're situated, when the big waves come in, it absolutely will just send these things skyrocketing over. It's just incredible to see the size and the scale of these waves is going to be really just amazing and awesome. And trying to capture that power and that sense of scale of just how humongous these waves are is going to be a challenge. I'll be here for 2 days. The weather is totally iffy. It's going to be stormy, which is fine, but if it's pouring down buckets, it's impossible to shoot photographs. So let's talk about scouting just for a quick second. Getting to a place early or even a day before helps you find places to shoot and also figure out where the sun is and the best direction to shoot. But I want to be shooting north because south is going to put the sun pretty much in the frame, and everything's going to be backlit, and it's high contrast. It's just going to be awful. It's not going to work nearly as well, if at all. And if I shoot directly north instead of south, look how much better everything looks. It's just going to look a lot better shooting north than it is shooting south. So what makes this particular vantage point so amazing is the waves are going to come in, they'll hit this rock, and it will literally go all the way up over this rock here. These waves right now are not that big. Tomorrow they ought to be just gargantuan. That's the hope. And to catch those waves coming up, hitting here, and then going all the way up and over. So let's talk basic settings right off the bat and things you have to have. Number one, take your polarizer off if you've got one on. You're not going to want to use one when you're out here shooting. You're going to want a fast shutter speed, and that polarizer is just going to slow you down. Especially tomorrow's going to be overcast. It's probably not going to do us a lot of good anyway. Number two, you want to must have a remote cable release. This is one of the must-have things if you're going to be shooting waves, simply because you don't want to be looking through your viewfinder trying to grab the shot. You want to be watching the waves as they come in from the ocean and be ready for it and just hit this button and be able to take the photograph. Number three, you want to make sure your camera's in high speed mode as far as the shutter. You want that shutter to be as fast as it possibly can, as many frames per second as you can possibly shoot. That way you'll be able to pick from the wave height that you want when you get it back on the computer. The next thing you're going to want to make absolutely positive that you've got is back button focus enabled. And that allows you to hit a button on the back of your camera. You can set it. So that's all that button does is focus, and you basically disconnect the focus from the shutter button. Because the last thing you want to do is when you press this button is the camera try to focus and it can't focus because it's on a part of a wave that's all white, it's very low contrast, and you miss the shot. With back button focus set, you hit that, it focuses, it sets, and then you just hit this, hold it down for a second when you want it, and every time it's going to be in focus every single time. As for camera settings, places to start, what I recommend is around 500th of a second, is depending on the wave's height and size and how much blur that you want or how much motion you want to try to capture. I don't like freezing the motion of the wave. I like to have a little bit movement in it, and so 500th of a second is where I like to be, give or take a third or maybe a half a stop from there. As far as your aperture, F8, F11 or so is probably a good place to start. You could maybe go lower. You can open that aperture up if you need a faster shutter speed, but just be careful that everything you want is going to be in focus, because depending on your focal length, that might not be the case. And you don't want to get home and be sad that you didn't get everything in focus that you wanted because you're shooting at F4 in order to get a high shutter speed. And last, don't be afraid to take and raise your ISO. It's okay to go ISO 400 or even ISO 800. These cameras today can easily do that. So don't be afraid to ramp your ISO up to get the depth of field that you want and the shutter speed that you want. So it's the next day. This is Friday. The king tide is today, tomorrow, and Sunday. And I'm here with, I don't know, 40 of my new photographer friends. It's not too crazy. I think tomorrow is going to be insane with the number of people because it's a weekend. This is a Friday. And been waiting, just watching, and it's been a big nothing burger. There's been pretty much no waves that have, or of any substance, or of any height or power. So for king tide to really work, it's got to be, in addition to the king tide, you really need to have some type of a storm or some kind of wind, some kind of a front moving in to really push and make those waves really epic. And that's just not happening today. We've actually got some blue sky, we've got moderate temperatures and no wind. Tomorrow, however, is supposed to be a lot different. And so we're gonna get here early in the morning, and I got a feeling it's gonna be a lot stormier, which is good and bad. It's gonna be good because I think we'll get great waves. It's gonna be bad because it's gonna be really a big challenge to keep the water off the lenses, and wind, it's gonna be really windy as well. So it's just gonna be it'll be a challenge, but I think tomorrow is gonna be when we're gonna have the odds of getting the most epic photographs. Day 2 at Shoreacre State Park. Yesterday was nothing. We had just nice weather and no big waves, so there's 0 photos from yesterday whatsoever. Last night, totally shut out for sunset because it absolutely poured rain, just unbelievable torrential downpour last night, so there was absolutely no sunset. This morning, no rain, really, really windy, some pretty clouds, high tide's about 4 hours away. So we're gonna hang out, wait, and cross our fingers that we get something epic. Been waiting a few hours, some medium-sized waves, but not the shot that I want. And I'm feeling that today is also going to be a big nothing. The weather is just not conducive. The king tide is only a part of the equation. Just because it's a king tide is not automatically equal gigantic waves. It's just not the way it works. You have to have other factors. You have to have wind, storm surge. There's more to it than just having the king tide. There's been some big waves, don't get me wrong, but not like the gigantic, epic, monster-sized waves. And usually it builds to that. And when it starts happening, it's just one after another after another. And we're not seeing any building, and we've not seen any really big ones at all. So gonna hang out probably for another hour and a half, and then if it's not like really starting to shine, we're probably just gonna call it, because it's about a 5-hour drive back to Washington. So fingers crossed, maybe something will happen. We'll see. After waiting and waiting and waiting, it just didn't get any better. The waves weren't getting any larger. Those big monster waves just never happened, which, you know, it's okay. I'll be back. And it's just kind of like when you go fishing, or if you go hunting, or you do any of those chance-based activities. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you don't. We watch the weather. This is the king tide. We're supposed to be stormy. It's not. It's actually blue sky out today. It's kind of windy, so there was a little bit, but not enough to make those, like I say, those monster waves. But until then, here are my best shots from Shore Acres State Park. So even though I didn't get the monster waves, I hope you liked the video. And if you did, I sure would appreciate a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe so you can, you know, don't miss any of my future failures. And hopefully some really epic photography as well. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.